For the record, this is commentary over round 5 of Plenty of Games' Winner Library event. We have Riley Jones on Grixis on the left-hand side here, and Michael Billinghurst, my fellow committee member, on Nadu Walks on the right. A couple of interesting bits and pieces here. Billinghurst's walk deck is minus red at the moment. He's been playing black for Overlord of the Baelmerk, a couple of discard spells. Doesn't have space for Psychic Frog, unfortunately. Netherglyph, Baraglyph, some other bits and pieces. I assume there's a Fatal Push. I believe this is game 1, and Michael is currently deboarding, I believe. If I remember the record correctly on the day, I'm pretty sure we managed to capture the start of each round. I don't know that we could have missed a whole game, so should be game 1. This matchup is super interesting. The onus is on the Grixis player to apply as much pressure as possible, but because of how Nadu Walks has developed over time, in terms of reaching a critical mass of interaction, and the fact that Nadu Nomads is so hard to interact with, the fact that Grixis has counter magic and ways to interact with the graveyard does have less impact than it used to. Against Walks previously, when it was E-Witness plus Ephemerate, and that was like the all-in game plan, and you could sometimes backdoor a game with Omnath or Pyroglyph. I would say that the current builds that are leaning heavily on interaction from Walk's end would put Billinghurst in the driver's seat in this matchup. I would say that he's probably quite favoured. If I remember correctly, there were 7 rounds of Swiss. This is round 5. I think this was an X1 table. Although both of these players top-8'd, so it must be an XO table. Must be 5-0 and one of them got paired down and bashed into. Getting the match underway here. So Riley revealing his Lutri. Now the decision point between playing and not playing Lutri has been a divide in the Grixis decks. We saw in the previous round that Juzza has eschewed Lutri, but we see here that Riley is opting to pay the points for it. Lutri itself did not receive a points change in Foundation, but Gush did. Gush went up to 2 from 1, and so that is part of the reason why some people have cut either Lutri, Gush, or both. So it'll be cool to see how Grixis develops over time, but getting things underway, Michael firing off an Underground Sea, doesn't have a Netherglyph, doesn't have a discard spell, doesn't have a Ponder, might have a Brainstorm, but otherwise probably just land drop go with a handful of 2-drops and 3-drops. Riley going to crack a fetch for an Underground Sea, which means either threat or discard spell or cantrip. If he has a discard spell, that's pretty big. And it's a Duress. Okay, so Duress can't take some of the cards. Okay, so Duress is taking Swords to Plowshares, and Michael's hand is creatures and a land. So he has a Tropical Island, an Overlord of the Baelmerk, Nomads, Emperor of Bones, and Nadu. Doesn't have a white source. Can win the game very soon. This is pretty bad for Riley. I don't know how he wins this game. I mean, if he finds a discard spell, that's a big deal. Overlord almost whiffing there. It can only pick up creatures. It can only pick up non-avatar creatures, but to my knowledge, there aren't any avatar creatures that are seeing play. Hits Teferi, Green Sun, Zenith, Marshflights, none of which were hits, and the last card was Grist, which is a creature when it's being milled. So Michael didn't whiff there and gets to put a Grist in his hand. So now he has Grist, Emperor of Bones, Nomads, Nadu, Unknown, 2 lands, no other lands, no white source. Pretty big deal. Riley going to play a Darcy and then a Thoughtseize. Michael flipping over his hand before realizing that Riley is cognizant and is going to surveil off the Darcy. I believe that's an Unearth, which now means that Thoughtseize can't take Nadu or Grist. I'm almost positive that's an Unearth. So because you can't take Nadu or Grist, because Unearth will pick them up, the Bone Man is scary because you're looking for Delirium. This hand's terrifying. He's going to take the Bone Man. He's going to ship the turn back. Billinghurst rips a land off the top, doesn't even finish fetching, and slams a Nadu into play. That's pretty good. I think Riley went from maybe 30% to win this game when that hand was revealed off Thoughtseize. I think now he's about 5%, I would say. The reason being that if he can counter the Nomads, it gets brought back by Unearth. If he can kill the Nadu, it gets brought back by Unearth. If he has a discard spell and a kill spell, maybe he's okay. But he's already played a Thoughtseize and a Duress, so the odds that he finds another discard spell are pretty close to 0. Consider going to bin a land with the Darcy and then another land with itself. Draws a card here. I don't think Riley ever wins this game. I think he has to be at like 5% at the moment. On top of everything, I don't know if Darcy has hit Delirium, but if it did, it would have killed itself into the Nadu. And that's also bad news, Bez. Michael going to snap off Nomads. And we're going to dismember Nadu in response and surveil. Okay. So Nadu going to put a land into play. It's a surveil land. This is all going to resolve before Darcy's surveil and before Dismember resolves. Michael keeps on top. Riley doesn't. Dismember resolves. Then Nomads resolves. Unearth put on the stack here, targeting Nadu. Riley going to crack a fetch. And I believe there was a Spell Pierce, so he's going to fire that off here. Okay, well, the fact that he drew a Dismember is a big deal. Might actually be able to win this game now. Out of nowhere. Although, I mean, Michael has now generated a mana advantage because of Nadu. He has an Overlord ticking down. He has a Grist in hand that's still scary. If he finds another way to reanimate the Nadu, that's bad. Spell Pierce is going to resolve a Surveil and bin a Force of Will. I don't believe Riley's hit Delirium yet. I don't think he has a creature. I think it's just instant sorceries and lands. I'm going to untap and draw. Now, we did see a Gurmag Angler get flashed. Which will give him a threat. Contemplating attacking with the Darcy. I don't know how the Nomads interaction works. So Riley's gone from 5 to maybe 15%, maybe 20. His hand's real light, and the board state is really bad for him. Well, the board state's not so bad. There is an Overlord, and that will probably just win the game by itself. And I'm fairly confident the Grist will resolve. Michael gonna block with the Nomads on Darcy. And at this point, he's lost his Nadu, he's lost his Unearth, he's lost his Nomads, so he's presumably just going to build towards a Walks kill here. or try and solo the game with Grist, which I think is also reasonable. Angler's going to resolve. Notably, the 1/1s will just fog it. Angler doesn't have, any kind of combat keywords. Sanctuary going to pick up Dismember. Sure. Reasonable. Pretty good. Did he buy Lutri? He might have announced that he was buying Lutri. And Michael's just untapped. We'll keep an eye on it. Michael going to fire off. Okay, so Riley did announce Lutri and they were just shortcutting. So thoughts he's going to take Lutri and then he's going to take 2 for a pod and say go. So he's going to take 5 from this Angler. So Overlord's going to come in, but the pod insulates himself from Dismember here. Let's see what he draws. There are a lot of good draws in his deck. He can draw Walk. I don't think Spellseeker gets there, but it is a pretty good draw. He can draw 2-drop to go get Spellseeker. He's against a Gomag Angler, which doesn't have Trample, a Dismember, and an Island. So Riley's not, behind, but I still don't expect him to win this game. Gonna put a Grist on the stack. Gonna tick up Grist. Bins Walk. Okay. And is he sacking the Insect to pod? I don't know what 1-drops he can get. It's like Halfling. Traverse with Delirium. I imagine this will just get E-Witness or Spellseeker. He's going to start building towards the combo and just ending the game. The amount of resources that Michael theoretically has access to is just growing. And Riley's now lost his Lutri. He's used his Sanctuary. So he kind of has to draw, exactly Gush. Dismember can check the Overlord, which is fine. Inquisition takes E-Witness. That's a big deal. Okay. Dismember kills the Overlord. Gomag Angler kills the Insect. And, Riley has 1 card in hand. It's a face-up island. Michael has no cards in hand, but he has a Birthing Pod in play. He has a Grist, so if he draws a random idiot creature, he can kill the Angler and just reset the tempo in his favor. Just gonna tick up and say go. Pretty surprised he's not gonna activate Pod there for Nethergoyf. This Nethergoyf has to be massive, right? Riley draws a Preordain and fires it off. Scries a Pond at the top and draws it and fires that off. So he's ripping through his library this turn. I mean, Riley's taken 2 full 4 damage Dismembers. Can Grist ulti kill him? Moan Collapse. That's a big one. Grist is gone. Okay, so now Riley has just an Island and this Gomag Angler. Michael has just a Birthing Pod and lands. This is pretty much the same board state as 3 or 4 turns ago. And this Gomag Angler has still not connected with the face a second time. It happened once when Michael played the pod. It hasn't happened again. Surveils a Spring Heart to the graveyard. And that's just because E-Witness is in the graveyard, so he can't pod into it. Alright, what's he drawing here? He has a lot of live draws. He's milled a couple of lands. Oh, it's a Spellseeker? Spellseeker, you can pot it for timeless. Don't have a land drop to cast walk. So I guess you Spellseeker for Ephemerate, and then you pot it into timeless, and then you probably just put like A-Witness in hand and hold up the Ephemerate. Because if you have, I mean, how do you lose here? You could also get Ephemerate and pot it into timeless, get your something back, and then Ephemerate and get Ephemerate back, just so Ephemerate's in exile and rebound. Could do that as well. Bunch of options here. I mean, Major Spellseeker with a pot in play while Hellbent. I'm pretty sure that was close to best possible, so Michael there. Because even if he drew Timeless Witness, he wouldn't be able to cast Time Walk. Spellseeker had to be like best possibles. What's he pull to the front? Drown. I think that card face down is his current choice. It's Ephemerate. Okay. It's going to fire off the Ephemerate on the Spellseeker, pick up Drown, and then put the Ephemerate in rebound, and then pod the Spellseeker to get a 4-drop, which will be timeless, to pick up Walk, Plow, Grist, something. And he can afford to just take 5 here from Gurmag. So I guess you just... okay. I don't know why he's shuffling his graveyard. I don't think he realizes that he's holding his graveyard. He's almost certainly not realized that that's his graveyard. He's going to try to draw out of his library. Nope. Okay, we realized. Now he's going to shuffle his library and present. Riley draws and plays a Tamio and is dead on the spot. So Michael has infinite turns and just does the thing. Alright, Michael's up a game here. Really anemic board state in the mid game. Riley just completely out of cards that do anything. Has a creature in play, but it's one of the few creatures that doesn't have any combat keywords or meaningful value keywords. No Oculus or Tammy or anything. Michael found a spot to resolve a pod, and it kind of just sat in play, threatening to do things. So we had exactly one Nadu trigger that got put on the stack, and it could have very easily been 100. But Riley had actual perfects. He had Dismember as an answer to the Nadu as a spell pierce for the Unearth. And then he drew a Molten Collapse off a Ponder for the Grist. Okay. Kept it close. Kept it really, really close. Considering... Like, I put him at 5% to win in that mid-game, but that perfect sequence jumped him up to like 20 or 25. But I still think, considering what resources got spent and what he had access to, like, really in this kind of mashup, you need more cards in hand as Grixis, and you're okay with Walks having a couple of extra cards in hand to work with that they commit mana to. But if you both get Hellbent, it's usually really bad. Like, Walks has a bunch of A-Witnesses and Shooters, and you're just far more likely to draw a brick and die. Michael showing us how he's boarding. Very poorly, I might add. Definitely lost half of that, but that's okay. Looks like he cut a couple of expensive cards and trimmed the deck down a bit. Bit of graveyard interaction. Really in the tank about what to sideboard. I saw a Reb and a Massacre and a Submerge, so looking to interact with the chunks of the deck that blow him up, and then making sure that he can deal with the creatures left over in the aftermath, which is probably correct. That being said, this matchup's like pretty rough because just so many of your cards are incredibly anemic in the face of, you know, Eternal Witness loops and Spellseeker being a random idiot creature that draws a card, and Nadu just potentially killing you on the spot at any point, whether you have an interactive spell or not. I'm gonna go into game 2, see if I can skip ahead a bit while they shuffle. So Riley's gonna have the play here. Not as important as some of the other matchups that he needs the play against. None of his, 2 and 3 mana sideboard cards are particular haymakers for this matchup. Unless he's playing something weird like a Torpor Orb. That would be quite good. But realistically, we're just going to trade a bunch of resources and see what happens after the dust settles. A lot of really scary cards from both ends. Like this one. Michael firing off a Delighted Halfling on turn 1. If this dies, then it looks exactly like he played any other mana dork and it died. If it lives, suddenly Riley's counterspells are off. And if Halfling gets to stick a Nadu or a Teferi, Riley could just be dead on the spot with Force Blue card in hand. It's also possible that he might have to force the Halfling if he has access to it, but he might just be stone cold. And if that's the case, this is pretty bad. Untap, Shock for Watery Grave, Voidwalker Go? Oh, not in love with that. Now we're going to put a carpet on the stack. If this resolves, suddenly things are really messy. Gonna spend the carpet mana on a Spring Heart on Halfling. Gonna play an island and make an insect. And cast a Tameo off Halfling. Okay. Well, that's a board. Notably, nothing went to the graveyard that turn for Voidwalker, so it's probably just gonna go sideways. And all of a sudden, Riley is against a Carpet of Flowers that will accelerate Michael, a Halfling that will protect his legendary spells, a bunch of threats that can all win the game by themselves. It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. Surprised we're not making more Halflings here. They do represent a lot more damage. Just because insects are far less likely to be able to crack in long term. Gonna put a Brainstorm on the stack and flip our Tameo. Brainstorm gonna go under Voidwalker here. Tameo going to flip, which is kind of awkward because, I mean, obviously Michael can't block the Voidwalker. But if it keeps attacking Tameo, that does represent parity, because the +2 and the attack for 2 will cancel out. I imagine Michael has a fair amount of interaction in hand. I guess or a drown. So Tameo goes from 2 to 4 and then back to 2. I mean, so far, Riley has put 1 spell on the stack this game, which is Voidwalker. Although, I imagine if he's cracking a fetch in response to this Flooded Strand, he might be putting an opposition agent on the stack. Has to be Oppo, right? Player's probably trying to work out where exile piles should be. I was Colligan's Command, targeting Clue Token Tameo. Okay. We're going to resolve the Misty. No, I think it was a Strand. We might see a Halfling this turn. Okay, so fairly confident Michael cracked a Flooded Strand here, but my guess would be as to how he got a Bayou is that both players thought he was cracking a Misty, because that's the card that's currently on top of his graveyard. But he definitely cracked a Strand, it's just that it's under the Tameo and the Voidwalker pile, so little flub there. Pretty innocent mistake, both players just clearly not catching it. Not quite sure why Halfling is tapped here. Spending blue for Strix, so presumably making some black mana with Carpet. Gonna tap the Halfling token, and make a Baraglyph. And then we're just gonna start sending it in sideways because Voidwalker can't block. I mean, the Voidwalker can cast a Tameo at the moment, but that's kind of it, right? And at this point, I mean, Riley's cast 2 spells this game. Michael has cast about 9. Pyroglyph going on the stack. I imagine if Michael can counter this, he will, which may start a counter war. Drown in the lock on Pyroglyph. Riley has Force blue card, but it's the wrong Force. It's Force Negation. So Pyroglyph will get countered. Drown will go under Voidwalker. We have Force blue card for Michael's next non-creature spell, but that just doesn't matter in this spot. You know, he has like 10 power in play or something. Baraglyph's pretty small, I think it's a 2/3. Plus the Strix for 3, plus 4 1 power tokens for 7. He has 9 power in play, which is just an immense advantage. He also has 3 Carpet mana next turn, but that's very quickly not becoming relevant. Especially if he keeps making Halflings. Baragov will flip a bunch of cards. Riley gonna cast Tamio with Voidwalker. Okay. I mean, it lets him block a little bit, but I think he's just... I don't know how he's winning this game. We're just going sideways. We're going to chump the Baragov. Get in for 6. Gain a little bit of life off Baragov. Tamio's going to hit the yard. And then presumably we are putting something on the stack. It's a Nadu with uncounterable. No, we definitely don't have outs. There's no universe where Riley gets out of this, right? It has to be like Toxic Deluge. It has to be Deluge. Massacre definitely doesn't do it anymore. Spot removal doesn't work. We know he has some counter magic. He found a Submerge. That's not going to do anything. He looks dead as hell. And I assume he is dead as hell. Dismember, Counterspell, Force Negation, Submerge. Yeah, none of this does anything. Anything he kills gives a Nadu trigger. Michael realistically doesn't have to put any more cards on the stack, so these counterspells are dead. Submerge will give an auto trigger and also just be bad. Yeah, and that'll do it. Michael wins 2-0 versus Riley in round 5 of the Plenty of Games Winner Library event. GG's and well played. Hi everyone, Volty here. Today's video was brought to you with the lovely help of my patrons and donors who you can see up here on screen. If you would like to financially support the content, there's links down below, and you can make sure that if you're able to and you want to help support the channel, that you can do so. You'll also get your name visible up here on screen as well, which is very cool. If you are watching this on YouTube, please consider subscribing. It's free, it doesn't cost you anything, and it really helps out the channel a ton. And if you're watching this on Twitch, please consider clicking that follow button as well. The bell will let you be notified of when streams are going live, but otherwise that's it from me. I'll catch you all next time.